On Tech News Today, Microsoft announces a new product called GigJam. We'll tell you all about it. Plus, Apple is making way too much money on iPhones, but how's the watch doing? And Comcast announces a new cord-cutting service that requires Comcast's cord. It's all coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, July 13th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Prosper. Prosper is a peer-to-peer lending marketplace which connects people who are looking to borrow money with those who have money to lend. Visit prosper.com/twit and receive a $50 Visa gift card when you get a loan. And by Braintree. If you're working on a mobile app and searching for a simple payment solution, check out Braintree. With one simple integration, you can offer your customers every way to pay. To learn more and for your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free, go to braintreepayments.com/TNT. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. My name is Mike Elgan. Our co-anchor today is CNET.com editor-in-chief Lindsey Turrentine. Hey, Lindsey, what's going on?
Hey, Mike. It's a beautiful Monday morning in California, and I am ready to go. That's what's going on.
Good, good. That makes one of us. So why don't we jump into the news? Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella today is rolling out a new app called GigJam. Harry McCracken is technology editor for Fast Company and joins us to explain all of this. Welcome to you, Harry McCracken.
Great to be here.
All right, now what is GigJam exactly?
GigJam is really a kind of a new idea. It's a tool that works not just on Windows PCs, but also Macs and iPhones and iPads and Android devices. And it lets you grab essentially business information, which could be emails or calendar information or something from Office 365 or something from a business tool like SAP or Microsoft Dynamics. You can grab it within GigJam. You can use Cortana to speak, to retrieve information. And then you can package up little bits of the information you grabbed and send it to your colleagues as mini apps, Microsoft calls them. And you can just send something to somebody as an FYI. You can ask them for feedback on it. You can add audio notes and text notes, or you could delegate something entirely to another person. So it's essentially a new way of thinking about collaborative work.
So, Harry, does everybody who's receiving and giving this information have to be using GigJam? Do they have to use Cortana? Is this Cortana for business, or is it an entirely different platform that just happens to use Cortana as an interface?
Cortana is sort of an interface for this. You can kind of get started by using Cortana to pull information from your various business sources inside your business. And yes, everybody needs to be a GigJam client, and there are going to be ones for Windows and OS X and iOS and Android. And Microsoft says, by the way, that it's soon, but they don't say exactly when, and they aren't talking about printing yet.
So, Harry, I can't tell whether this reminds me of Lotus Notes or Google Wave or something else, but I'm trying to picture how this would actually work. So just a simple example would be you have a Word doc, I want your feedback, so I capture a paragraph, ask your feedback. How do I receive your feedback? Is it in a central location? Does it come via email? How does that work exactly?
Well, the examples Microsoft talked about with me are a little bit more sophisticated than something like editing a Word document. One of them is if somebody is inspecting an aircraft, they have this very long list of extremely important steps they need to go through, and they could use GigJam to take a specific step and seek feedback from a colleague who might be somebody right there at the aircraft, or it might be somebody somewhere else in the world. They could also delegate certain tasks from that, and essentially everybody would be working inside GigJam. So you would send specific tasks to them. It could be either one task or several tasks. They would get a notification on their device. They would pull up those tasks within GigJam. And the thing that makes us different from something like Notes or Wave is you're not just talking about the work. You can actually do the work. You can package up specific steps from your aircraft inspection app and send those. So it's, in a way, it's kind of taking out the talking about something part of collaboration and actually just letting you do the work with inside GigJam.
Very interesting for everybody who's interested in this, and I think that everybody in business really needs to get on this right away because it's brand new information. Go to fastcompany.com and read Harry's article on this. There are lots of details there that you need to know about, and of course, I imagine we'll be hearing more about this as it comes out. As Harry reported, we don't know when GigJam will ship. Microsoft said, "quote unquote," soon. So we don't know what that means, but this is going to be coming out at some point in our future, and everybody who's in who uses Microsoft products for business, and even people who don't, this actually supports operating systems outside of Microsoft, can also take advantage of this. Harry McCracken is at fastcompany.com, technologizer.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at Harry McCracken. Harry, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, we have some more news for you coming right up, but first I want to talk about money and specifically borrowing it through Prosper, one of our sponsors today. Of course, borrowing money is oftentimes a very, very good idea. If you want to launch a business, for example, if you want to fix up your kitchen, if you want to pay off your credit cards, whatever it is, oftentimes borrowing money is a great idea. The problem is that there aren't a lot of great places to borrow money. You don't want to borrow from family and friends. You don't want to go to a bank. You know, Prosper solves this problem by giving you a great model for borrowing money. Basically, you can borrow up to $35,000 in as few as 5 days, and you can, you know, use that money for whatever you choose. And here's the great part. When you actually go to Prosper for that loan, you specify what you're going to use the money for, and then people will invest in you and your project. So, for example, if you want to make your business more environmentally friendly by installing solar panels or something like that, you can get a green loan, and there are people who want to invest in improving the environment. And so it's a win-win for everybody. The investors get a great return on their investment. You get investment in your project, and you get to borrow money the Silicon Valley way, not the old and busted ways that are not particularly appealing. To check your low rate instantly without affecting your good credit, go to prosper.com/twit. And now, for a limited time, Prosper is offering Twit viewers a $50 Visa gift card with your new interest loan. You can get up to $35,000 in your account in as few as 5 days and a $50 Visa gift card. Just go to prosper.com/twit for this special offer just for the Twit Army. After rumors that Apple Watch sales have slowed to a trickle, a new report from Slice Intelligence obtained exclusively by Mac Rumors says Apple has sold just over 3 million watches. Joe Rossignol is the editor and community manager for Mac Rumors and joins us now. Welcome to you, Joe.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to finally be on the show.
I'm glad you're here now.
Numbers.
Before we get started, can you tell me whether 3 million is good? Is that a lot of watches, or is that not as many as expected?
So before I get into the methodology or exactly talk about the numbers, I do want to talk about the methodology because Slice Intelligence, these are obviously unproven numbers. I know a bunch of people in the Apple community have been very vocal about where Slice Intelligence is getting these numbers from. And so, I mean, they're unproven, but if 3 million is accurate, it's really impressive. I think a lot of publications have been kind of giving this clickbait kind of story, doom and gloom, 90% decline since launch. I don't think any of that is painting an accurate picture. I think 3 million, if true, is a very impressive number, especially because wearables are still an emerging category. This is still a product that consumers are still warming up to this product, and they're not used to wearing a watch. Like, I'm a millennial, and I am wearing an Apple Watch right now, and my whole life before, maybe I was 5 years old the last time I wore a watch. It was just like a Timex from Christmas. And so it's a new product, but I think Apple's doing really well with it right now.
So what's interesting about this is the breakdown of which watches people are buying, at least according to this one report. It looks like, from what you wrote, you're seeing about twice as many sport watches sold as the stainless steel ones. That actually, it surprised me that as many stainless steel watches were being sold as your report shows. Can you tell us a little bit more about that breakdown?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Apple Watch Sport is unsurprisingly the #1 selling Apple Watch. It's the cheapest one, has a starting price of $349. But like you said, I think it's impressive that Apple is actually getting people to buy the mid-tier one, the stainless steel one, which starts at $549. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that it's a nicer watch, right? Apple's marketing as a fashion item But not only that, but the middle one is kind of a nicer device for people that can't afford the $10,000 one. I mean, if you're not interested in an 18-karat gold watch, but you still want a nice-looking watch, then you're probably going to go for the stainless steel one. And that's the one that I have right here with the leather band, and I honestly love it. It's as much of a technology item as it is a fashion item.
And I'm a Gen Xer, and I have. Anyway, I thought originally I was going to get the stainless steel, but at the last minute I went for the cheap one simply because I know that I'm going to get the next one when it comes out, and also because it's lighter, and I kind of like that. So,
Right.
you know, there are benefits to the cheap one in addition to having, you know, lack of a sapphire display and all that kind of stuff. Now, you listed countries where Slice Intelligence didn't gather data on the Apple Watch sales, and there was a dozen or so, I guess. And you also pointed out that it does not include, this estimate does not include walk-in purchases. Do you have a guess, or does anybody have any estimates about what the total would be as of right now, the 3 million plus the uncounted watches? Roughly how many watches are we talking about here?
So I don't think that it's possible to have an accurate prediction. I mean, Apple has their own numbers that they're not going to be releasing, or at least they say they won't release it. In their new quarterly fiscal reports, they're going to be categorizing the Apple Watch under other products, and that includes things like Beats electronics and accessories. So you were never going to have an accurate number. But I think given that we have an estimate of 3 million US only and online only, it could be anywhere north of 5 million, 6 million. But I mean, that's, my guess is as good as anybody's. It's really hard to say. But the number one thing is that I think Apple is doing really successful with this product. I think a lot of media publications have played it down as if it's a doom and gloom product. Apple's not doing good with this new product. Oh no, like they're not innovating without Steve Jobs. But I really think that comparatively to other wearable products on the market, and even probably in terms of what Apple was expecting, I think they're doing really well with this product, especially after only 3 months on the market.
I think it'll be fascinating to, when we do finally find out Apple's sales data or get this from somewhere else, I think it'd be fascinating to see what the sales data looks like after we factor in China. You know, looking at 1,800 Apple Watch editions sold in the US, I wonder if that would be double that in China or many, many more, because there have been a lot of people talking about how that watch seems to be fashioned for the offshore market. Anyway, really interesting to see what happens outside of the American sales dynamic.
For sure.
And someone in the chat room is saying, I don't think we should be guessing, but I think that in addition to the actual hard facts, I think Joe has really clarified exactly what this data is all about. And so there's stuff we know from the report, that there is a report. There's stuff we don't know. And I think those estimates are useful, because it's, you know, there's a big difference between roughly 3 million and possibly 5 million or whatever. So I do appreciate that. Joe Rossignol, thank you so much for joining us on Tech News Today at long last. Joe is at macrumors.com and on Twitter at RSGNL. Thank you again for joining us, Joe.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Nintendo's popular president Satoru Iwata has died of cancer at the age of 55. Iwata was the company's 4th president and had been in that role for 13 years. Joining us to talk about this is LA Times games reviewer Todd Martens. Welcome to you, Todd.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Now, can you review what made Iwata so popular among some gamers?
Well, you know, it's interesting because he sort of took a different tact than his competitors at Sony and Microsoft. He was very adamant that games had to appeal to a new audience. Games, he wrote an editorial for the LA Times in 2006 that was basically arguing that the game industry was going down this crucial path of sort of creating two markets, a market for hardcore gamers and a market for, you know, more casual gamers. And he really wanted to appeal to that more casual gamer, really wanted to bring in new gamers into the fold. And that sort of led to the creation of the Wii, which really captivated the public. It was probably his biggest success. Well, I mean, it was his biggest success. It sold over 100 million units. You know, and just sort of a flick of the arm, a flick of the wrist, and you were playing virtual tennis. And, you know, that innovated in a way we hadn't seen in the game industry before.
Do you know what's going to happen? Do you have any sense of what's going to happen next at Sony now that he is passed on? I'm sorry, at Nintendo. Wow. Nintendo has a lot to do and a big long road ahead of it. Do we know who's coming next?
No, they haven't said who's coming next. They said it looks like in the interim, Miyamoto, their legendary creator, the man behind Donkey Kong, Super Mario Brothers, Zelda, on and on and on, is going to sort of take a bit of a leadership role. Whether he'll stay on in that position, it's unknown at this moment. Nintendo was sort of coming off of the Wii U, which is kind of, it's not really, doesn't come close to matching the success of the Wii. It's considered a bit of a flop. It's losing to the PlayStation 4, to the Xbox One. And Iwata was really talking about taking the company in a different direction over the next 10 years. He's been talking a lot over the last year and a half about quality of life products, and what those products were, we don't really know. He's been saying that more information will be released, in the coming years and the years ahead. He said he had a 10-year plan. So whether or not that'll come to fruition, that's a big question mark right now.
Interestingly, Nintendo issued a press release on this news, and it was a single short sentence. But his history is actually quite extensive. He started out as a game engineer himself, a game creator. And you can read all about that by reading Todd Martin's article at the LA Times site, latimes.com. Todd Martin is also on Twitter at Todd Martens. Martens is spelled M-A-R-T-E-N-S. One last question before I let you go, Todd. You said that you were Skyping in from the LA Times game room. LA Times has a game room?
That is correct. They don't want me reviewing games in the privacy of my own home, so they can keep an eye on me. So we have a little cubby hole back here where we have all the game systems, and this way I can review and go into the office and write.
Well, Todd Martens, again, thank you for coming on Tech News Today. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Reuters is reporting in an exclusive that the FTC is formally investigating Apple over whether their 30% cut of streaming music subscriptions is legal under U.S. antitrust law. The policy, which is part of Apple's agency model for monetization, means that the apps that compete with Apple Music, such as Spotify, Rhapsody, Deezer, and Django, and others, are put at a disadvantage on iOS. They're put in the position of either losing money on subscriptions or charging more than the $9.99 Apple charges for Apple Music. Making matters worse, Apple's App Store policies that go across all apps prohibit app makers from telling users about other platforms or telling them the fact that they can sign up for that subscription on the web, which would be theoretically the same price on the app and on the web, but on the web, the companies don't have to pay Apple 30%. Lindsey Turrentine, this is kind of interesting. We actually talked about this on Twit yesterday, and Jeff Dunn Roberts made the point that, yeah, this sounds bad, and it is bad for competitors, but antitrust law requires that consumers be harmed, not competitors. So he basically believes that this is not going to result in any a bad result for Apple. What do you think?
Well, it does seem that consumers can be harmed if the competitors are forced to raise their prices, and then consumers are essentially then, forced into one choice over another because they don't, they're looked at such a big price difference that it's not really a fair comparison. That said, the Reuters article that brings this up points out that although Apple dominates music through iTunes in one sense, Android owns such a large share of the smartphone market that this is only really that forced choice in the Apple ecosystem, and really you could go to a totally different platform and have a different experience. So it is kind of an interesting back and forth there. It's an interesting argument.
Absolutely, and we'll see where that goes. At this point, once again, I want to emphasize that this is a preliminary, informal investigation. They haven't actually launched an official investigation of this. They just, at this point, want to know if this is worth investigating. Well, Comcast last night announced a new on-demand service called Stream, which delivers TV over the internet, sorta, kinda. In fact, it's IP-based TV that uses only the last mile of the internet. It's a service for cord cutters that requires you to have Comcast's cord-based TV service. The Stream TV feed works only while you're at home, so you can't use it when you are traveling on business or whatever. And it's available only in Boston starting this summer and a few other locations later on. It costs $15 a month, and subscribers get about 12 channels, including the broadcast networks and HBO, but not ESPN. Lindsey Turrentine, I can't imagine why anyone would want this.
Well, I think it's actually available for people who have the Comcast internet service. So I don't think you have to have the TV service. I think it works if you have just the internet service. So you're already paying for Comcast internet to your house, which is actually a situation I'm in. I use Comcast internet, but I don't get my TV from Comcast. And it might be an attractive alternative if you're, say, like a college student, you're already paying for internet and you're like, I only really want 4 channels. You know, these are the only things I watch. I think that it might be good if you're in that situation.
Yeah, I think you could be right there. Again, we'll see how. I mean, clearly this is the result of a series of meetings, no doubt, that happened at Comcast where they're freaking out about cord cutters and how can we give that segment something that they're looking for and still be able to collect their money. So we'll see how actual users actually like this thing. But
yeah, they seem to be targeting, you know, college students for sure. When launch in Boston, that's got to be the target market.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Well, in courtroom drama news, a new class action lawsuit claims that MakerBot committed fraud by knowingly selling replicator 3D printers with flawed extruders. An extruder is the part where the 3D stuff comes out. The suit alleges that MakerBot cut corners on quality control in order to grow faster. Lindsey Turrentine, you know, I've looked into this a little bit, and it looks like this lawsuit may have merit, and this is really bad news for the MakerBot people.
Yeah, if it does have merit, that's very upsetting, especially because MakerBot really targets education markets. And if you're kind of like, well, just give them the crappy one, they'll be fine, they're kids. I don't know. I mean, that's just conjecture, of course, but that is upsetting.
One juicy detail is that apparently, allegedly, the quality control people actually had trouble getting units to test. They were cranking them out and shipping them so fast that apparently there were problems internally being able to test things properly. Well, we have some big numbers for you coming up in just a second, but first, let's talk about Braintree. Braintree is code for easy online payments. If you're a mobile app developer, you got to check out Braintree because this is the service that's being used by some of the best startups in the industry. Some major unicorn action here. Uber, Airbnb, Hotel Tonight, Living Social, and Munchery. All of those services have one thing in common, which is that they're super, super easy to use if you are, you know, using your payments through them because they use Braintree. Braintree gives you continuous support, fast payouts, and that means that you'll be prepared as your company grows from a tiny startup to a big startup like Uber. Braintree is helping solve the problem of mobile cart abandonment too, because what happens is when people are on a mobile device and they want to pay you and get your services or your product, and it's so complex and it's so difficult and time-consuming that they wander away. And Braintree solves that problem. They make it so easy that people will just be fast-tracked right to the purchase. And they get what they're looking for, and you get to receive that payment. It's a fantastic way to go, and it's easy for you as well. Braintree gives you a full-stack payment solution support for all payment types your customers might want. You can start accepting PayPal, Apple Pay, Bitcoin even, Venmo, credit cards, and so much more, all with a single integration across all platforms. They also have superior fraud protection, superior customer service, and really fast payouts. To learn more and for your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free, go to BraintreePayments.com/TNT. We've got a couple of very big numbers for you today. The first is 602,000. That's approximately how many links have been deleted from Google search because of Europe's right to be forgotten. That's more than half of the 1.1 million requests made by European citizens. And of course, these links are so far removed only within the EU, for the EU versions, I should say, of Google. Lindsey Turrentine, this is a large number. And in my view, this represents the magnitude of the inaccuracy that has been imposed on Google search results. And of course, the argument a lot of people make about this is that no, there's, you know, a search engine is not a perfectly accurate representation of what's on the internet because there's child porn and there's all these other things that are not removed. But in terms of the world of legal content, all this content that is on the other side of these links that have been removed are perfectly legal. This just feels to me like damage.
I am shocked that about half of the results have actually been successfully removed. Maybe I was overly optimistic. I expected it to be much less, that many fewer of those requests would actually be successful. So more than half of the 1.1 million is, you're right, I think an upsetting amount.
And this, there's an interesting little sub-story on this that I read about. I believe it was in the Netherlands. There was a man who was photographed in the local paper in the 90s playing what is one of those Australian instruments with with the rattly
didgeridoo?
Yes, exactly. He was playing one of those in the park. He had a beard and long hair, and he was young, and he was just enjoying himself in the park. The local paper took a picture. Well, he ended up going to business school, becoming a financial consultant, and now he feels stigmatized by that photo. So he requested that be removed, and he also requested that the newspaper remove it, and they did. So it's, this is like, I hadn't heard of any other case like this where the actual publication removed the publication based on the request. Of course, that's not based on the right to be forgotten. That's just them doing a solid for this guy who just asked them nicely, I guess. So anyway, very strange. I hope it doesn't come here.
I don't think it will.
Well, here is the big, huge, gigantic number of the month. That number is 92. That's the percentage of smartphone profits made by Apple in the whole industry. That estimate is from Canaccord and covers the first quarter of the year, and it's up from 65% from the same quarter of last year. Samsung makes about 15% of the profits, according to the report. Now, you want to note that the sum percentage, of course, is higher than 100%, and that's because losses from other companies are factored in. And here's a really interesting number that came with this story. This same estimate found that approximately 1,000 companies actually make smartphone handsets. That's a number that I hadn't heard, Lindsey Turrentine. But so just to frame this again, 1,000 companies, give or take 100 companies, are making smartphone handsets, and one of those companies is making 92% of the profits.
That's astounding and makes you think, why on earth would you enter the smartphone manufacturing market right now? And people are still doing it. And I find that astounding. I mean, you've got to have such a sense of hope for a very specific mission.
Well, the other thing that's interesting about this is that so many companies like Xiaomi and Huawei and some of the other Chinese companies, they have razor-thin margins. They are not trying to make profits. They are doing a scorched earth on the profitability of handsets, and it's working on everybody except Apple. Apple seems immune to the pressure, the price pressure on smartphones that all of these companies have brought to bear. I mean, you have like OnePlus One, for example, which was one of the first really inexpensive smartphone handsets that they got to be losing money on these things, or razor-thin margins or something, but that put pressure on the whole industry to lower the prices of phones. And Apple's like, nah, we're going to charge $700 for this thing.
I had a conversation with my babysitter last year, and I remember just kind of randomly asking her, like, hey, how do you pick a new phone? She goes, oh, well, I mean, doesn't everybody just buy the next iPhone? But there is an entire huge set of people who shop that way. It's pretty amazing. It defies all sort of conventional understanding of economics, to be honest.
It sure does. It sure does. Well, in news you can lose, a 45-year-old man who allegedly tried to charge his iPhone on a London train was arrested on suspicion of stealing electricity, according to a report in the Evening Standard. The sockets on the trains, he was told, are for the exclusive use of cleaning staff. Boy, they are strict, Lindsey Turrentine.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah. I don't understand that at all. Well, our TNT fan of the day is Corey Albrecht, who posted this picture on Google+. Corey is a work-from-home developer, and one of his cats often joins him on the couch while he drinks his coffee and watches Tech News Today. That is a furry Tech News Today watching companion right there.
Adorable. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Adorable.
Yes. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup or your furry mammal and post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT so we can find it. Lindsey Turrentine, you guys have another issue of that paper magazine of yours, don't you?
We do. It's on the newsstands now. We've got Lindsey Vonn on the cover of CNET magazine, which came out last week, and she is not talking about Tiger Woods.
Who's Lindsey Vonn?
She is a gold medal Olympic skier and has some really interesting stuff to say in the magazine, actually, about how she uses technology to train. and the technology that she hopes other people are not using, because she thinks she has a big advantage by being able to visualize skiing, and she doesn't want other people to be able to do it.
So why is she talking about it in CNET magazine?
I don't know. She spilled her worst fears. It's a really good read. You guys should go out and get it.
All right. And that is not available online, right?
Some of the pieces are. You can actually watch a video interview with Lindsey talking about these things. Some of the articles are. Most of them are in the magazine. You have to go buy it.
And she has a great name as well, Lindsey.
She does. It's great. It's the best.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lindsey Turrentine, and we will see you next Monday.
See you next week.
All right. Bye-bye. You can subscribe to Tech News Today on TuneIn, or choose your favorite way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. You can watch us live every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1700 UTC at twit.tv/live. You can follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV, and you can follow me on all the social networks at elgan.com. Don't miss our other daily news show, Tech News Tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific, tonight and every single weeknight. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the Tech News Today. This show is produced by Jason Cleanthes and edited by Anthony Nielsen. My name is Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.